Good evening, Zambia, and welcome to your trusted source of information, Bmtv News at 18 hours. We're coming to you live on channel 114 on Topstar, streaming across Bmtv channel 114 on Facebook and Bmtv Zambia on YouTube, and online at www.bmtvzambia.com. Wherever you are, we've got you covered. Tonight, as the sun sets over our beautiful nation, we bring you the stories shaping Zambia and the world, from the corridors of power to the voices on the streets, from breaking headlines to moments that matter the most to you. Stories making headlines this evening. HH highlights role of church in national development. Civil society demands transparency over the US-Zambia deal. Nadine Foundation champions menstrual health. And international news, Iran denies direct talks with US, dismisses unreasonable demands. And in sports, World Cup 2026 under fire as Amnesty warns of human rights risks for fans. I'm Tamwani Nkata, and this is where the information meets impact. President Hakainde Hichilema says the church plays an essential role in guiding society and contributing to the upliftment of people's lives across the country. The head of state said this when he congregated with members of the New Apostolic Church at Mongu Center. President Hichilema emphasized that faith-based institutions remain key partners in promoting moral values, unity, and social responsibility among citizens. He noted that the church's influence helps shape a disciplined and productive society, which is critical for national development. The president further encouraged continued collaboration between government and the church in addressing social challenges and improving livelihoods. More details from this report.
What we proclaim to be, but we must live. Our deeds must exemplify us in that sense. Once more, may the congregation appreciate the message that we have received here today. When we were coming in the church from the tent, I did whisper to the leadership that were in the tent with me. I said, I hope the music will be sung to Pina, a lot of Tupina. And I want to say that where I was seated, I was really satisfied with the singing that came through in the church today. Preaching comes through messaging, but also through tupina. May we thank the choir for the tremendous work that they do. I do believe that I have spoken for many, and we got a message that as we run into the elections, we have to keep our country peaceful, stable, and in unity.
Meanwhile, President Hakainde Hichilema graced the 2026 National Delivery Day, reaffirming government's commitment to improving service delivery and citizens' livelihoods. President Hichilema emphasized the need for accountability and efficiency in public service, stating that government remains focused on delivering tangible development to the people. More details from this report.
Important. So why am I veering like that? I'm veering like that to say, once you share a vision with people and they see it and they understand it, they will even move faster. So early in my notes, I want to encourage all of us seated in this room to see an opportunity in a structured way of doing things, or doing things in a structured way. You will find a lot of joy and value and satisfaction if you did things that way. That's my invitation. And that change must be embraced. Reforms deliver results. Because if we do things that we've been doing over and over the same way, how would you expect improvements to come? You know a scientist who said something, You're doing the same thing over and over and you expect different results. He called it madness. That is equal or equivalent to madness. You want better results, but you repeat the same processes that have delivered nothing. And the only reason you say, because I'm comfortable to do it this way. The step.
A coalition of civil society organizations working in natural resource governance and public health advocacy has called on the government of Zambia to halt the signing of a proposed health aid agreement with the United States. Signing concerns over transparency, sovereignty, and governance. Speaking on behalf of the coalition, Oxfam Policy, Advocacy and Influencing Lead, Chitimbwa Chifunda, said the Memorandum of Understanding, expected to be signed on April 1st, has not been made public, limiting stakeholder engagement and parliamentary oversight. She noted that proceeding without full disclosure could undermine both the health sector and natural resource governance. She said the United States has played a vital role in supporting Zambia's healthcare system, particularly in the HIV/AIDS treatment. Life-saving aid should not be tied to access to Zambia's mineral resources or sensitive health data. She noted that reports suggest that the agreement could include over $1 billion in health funding over 5 years, alongside conditions related to mineral access and data sharing, warning that such terms risk creating an imbalance between short-term health support and long-term national interests. She said the coalition is urging government to release the full draft agreement, ensure health aid remains unconditional, and protect national interests, including citizens' data and mineral resources. Nadine Foundation founder Desire Chimfwembe says no child should miss class due to natural biological process such as menstruation. Mr. Chimfwembe expressed concern that many pupils are still absent from school because they lack access to sanitary towels. He noted that in some cases, children are forced to use unhygienic materials, putting their health at risk. He emphasized the urgent need to educate young people on the proper menstrual hygiene and health practices, adding that awareness is key to protecting and empowering the girl child. Mr. Chimfwembe further stressed that addressing menstrual health challenges is a collective responsibility for both men and women, calling on communities to break the silence and end harmful taboos surrounding the subject. He was speaking during a donation of 350 packs of sanitary towels to Chongwe Primary School, where he also encouraged learners to practice abstinence and highlighted the negative effects of teenage pregnancies. More details from this report.
Teenagers not knowing, not having full information on how they can take care of themselves, got to abstinence, and also if you look at the high levels of rising numbers in these diseases that are related to UTIs, you'll find that maybe they are lacking information to do with menstrual hygiene and general hygiene for a boy child. We wouldn't want a situation where a girl child is in a monthly menses, and obviously they are getting bullied in schools by these boys simply because they don't know how to protect a girl child. So we are basically combating that, and as we are doing that, we are working hand in hand with obviously the Ministry of Health. Yes, we are just facilitating and as well donating pads. So just over the weekend we were at Chongwe Primary School, where we talked to about 1,646 pupils to be precise. We talked to everyone and we donated about 350 packs of pads.
Tonse Alliance Chairman for Presidential Affairs, Binwell Mpundu, has urged youths across the country to unite as Zambia heads towards the upcoming general elections. Mpundu emphasized the importance of youth participation in shaping the nation's future and called on young people to take active roles in the electoral process. He further encouraged the youth to rally behind Tonse Alliance leader Brian Mundubile by engaging in grassroots mobilization, including door-to-door campaigns to strengthen the support ahead of the pause. We take our first commercial break. We return with international news.
We're not supposed to be meeting up like this.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to come. I wanted to see you in person so that I tell you that I've managed to convince Chikonde to sell the land.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've also notified the buyer that he should be in by tomorrow.
Let's make sure that everything is in place.
Oh yeah, everything is in place.
And the title deeds, we need to come up with a perfect plan.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Bmtv main news at 18 hours. And now for international news. U.S. President Donald Trump has hinted at a possible deal with Iran, but says he's not ruling out a ground invasion. Trump has told the Financial Times that the U.S. forces could seize Iran's main oil export hub on the Karg Island. Speaking later on Air Force One, he suggested a deal to end the war is possible. Despite Trump's claims that negotiations are progressing, Iran says diplomacy with the United States is not being held directly. Tehran is calling Washington's demands excessive and maximalist. More details courtesy Al Jazeera.
So, US President Donald Trump has hinted at a possible deal with Iran, but he says he's not ruling out a ground invasion too. Iran has kept up its retaliatory attacks on Israel. An oil refinery in the northern city of Haifa has caught fire after being hit by missile debris shortly after the military detected launches from Iran. And people across Iran have endured another night of US and Israeli strikes. There have been large explosions in the capital of Tehran. A petrochemical plant in the northwestern city of Tabriz has also been hit. And President Donald Trump has told the Financial Times that US forces could seize Iran's main oil export hub on Karg Island. Speaking later on Air Force One, Trump suggested a deal to end the war is possible.
I think we'll make a deal with them, pretty sure. Whether it's possible, we won't. But we've had regime change, if you look already, because the one regime was decimated, destroyed, they're all dead. The next regime is mostly dead. And the third regime, we're dealing with different people than anybody's dealt with before. It's a whole different group of people. So I would consider that regime change. And frankly, they've been very reasonable.
Despite Donald Trump's claims that negotiations are progressing.
Nigeria is facing a sharp fuel price surge despite the launch of Dangote refinery, Africa's largest. Prices have jumped around 65%, the steepest increase among major African economies. The refinery was expected to reduce imports and stabilize costs, but Nigeria still relies heavily on foreign crude. Much of its own oil production is tied up in debt repayments to international lenders and energy companies, limiting local supply. The situation has been made worse by the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, which has disrupted global supply routes and pushed oil prices above $100 a barrel. Africa News has more details in this report.
Nigeria is facing a sharp fuel price surge despite the launch of the Dangote refinery, Africa's largest. Prices have jumped by around 65%, the steepest increase among major African economies. The refinery was expected to reduce imports and stabilize costs, but Nigeria still relies heavily on foreign crude. Much of its own oil production is tied up in debt repayments to international lenders and energy companies, limiting local supply. The situation has been made worse by the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, which has disrupted global supply routes and pushed oil prices above $100 a barrel. For Nigerians, the effects are immediate and severe. Transport costs have risen, food prices have doubled in some cases, and businesses are struggling with higher operating expenses. With unreliable electricity across the country, many households and companies depend on fuel-powered generators, making them especially vulnerable to price increases. The government has not chosen to reintroduce fuel subsidies, focusing instead on long-term market reforms and limited short-term relief measures.
We take our last set of commercials. Sports news will be coming up next. Welcome back, and now sports news. This summer's World Cup is being billed as a celebration of global football, but not everyone is convinced it will feel that way on the ground. A new report from Amnesty International warns that fans heading to the tournament in the US, Canada, and Mexico could face serious human rights concerns. Instead of the safe and inclusivity event promised by organizers, the group says there are growing risks around freedom of expression, policing, and immigration enforcement. In the United States, hosting the majority of matches, Amnesty points to aggressive immigration policies, mass detentions, and heavy surveillance. There are also concerns about international fans facing strict visa requirements, including hefty bond payments for some nationalities. We monitored African news for more detail.
This summer's World Cup is being billed as a celebration of global football, but not everyone is convinced it will feel that way on the ground. A new report from Amnesty International warns that fans heading to the tournament in the US, Canada, and Mexico could face serious human rights concerns. Instead of the safe and inclusive event promised by organizers, the group says there are growing risks about freedom of expression, policing, and immigration enforcement. In the United States, hosting the majority of matches, Amnesty points to aggressive immigration policies, mass detentions, and heavy surveillance. There are also concerns about international fans facing strict visa requirements, including hefty bond payments for some nationalities. Meanwhile, Mexico's large-scale deployment of security forces has raised fears about how protests will be handled. And in Canada, even social services have reportedly been disrupted to make way for tournament logistics. Officials insist safety is the top priority. but Amnesty argues that increased security could come at the cost of civil liberties.
Some Arsenal fans have launched a series of activities aimed at raising funds to refurbish and purchase life-saving equipment for the National Heart Hospital. Speaking during a cleanup exercise along Cairo Road, local organizing committee secretary Gabriela Nyambe said the group has adopted the neonatal ward at the hospital as part of the 7th edition of the Arsenal Africa Fans Festival, which will be held in Zambia. Mr. Nyambe explained that the ongoing activities are also meant to sensitize members of the public on the initiative and encourage support towards improving the welfare of newborn babies in need of specialized care. She added that the fundraising efforts reflect the fans' commitment to giving back to the community and making a meaningful impact beyond football. More details from this report.
So basically what you can see behind me, we are cleaning. This is one of our exercises when it comes to fundraising for the neonatal ward at the National Heart Hospital. So we adopted the ward as our charity initiative for the 7th edition of the Arsenal Africa Fans Festival, which is here in Zambia. It's going to have different people. These are our Arsenal fans from Zambia, but we have other countries that have already started coming into Zambia. For example, Rwanda, we have a visitor right now who's taking part in this cleanup campaign. So we adopted Cairo Road because we know it's one of the biggest, the busiest roads that we have in Lusaka. So we just want to sensitize people that as Arsenal Zambia, we are adopting the neonatal ward at the Heart Hospital, where we are going to be refurbishing the ward as well as donating life-saving equipment for the babies.
Well, that brings us to the end of our news. We look at the stories that made headlines. HH highlights role of church in national development. Civil society demands transparency over the US-Zambia deal. Nadine Foundation champions menstrual health. Iran denies direct talks with the US, dismisses unreasonable demands. And World Cup 2026 under fire as Amnesty warns of human rights risks for fans. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Tamani Nkata. Remember to stay kind. A huge thank you to the production crew on Camera 1, Aldridge Kampamba. Camera 2, Jackson Tembo. On transmission, Douglas Banda. And our reporters, Sontra Morris Sinkala, as well as Ruth Musakabantu. Have a good evening and stay blessed.
We're not supposed to be meeting up like this.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to come. I wanted to see you in person so that I tell you that I've managed to convince Chikondi to sell the land.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've also notified the buyer that he should be in by tomorrow.
Let's make sure that everything is in place.
Oh yeah, everything is in place.
And the title deeds, we need to come up with a perfect plan.